I never thought my past as a Navy SEAL would matter in a quiet suburban neighborhood, but one afternoon it came crashing back in the most brutal way. 3 fake cops in tactical vests stormed onto my property pretending to enforce HOA law, and one of them made the biggest mistake of his life. He slapped my wife, Sarah. By the end of that day, their faces looked nothing like when they arrived. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. The whole thing started earlier that morning when Sarah went outside to water the garden. She noticed a strange black SUV circling our block 3 times before it stopped across the street. 3 men stepped out wearing dark tactical vests with shiny police patches sewn on. At first glance, they looked official, but Sarah immediately noticed something off. Their belts were cheap nylon with plastic holsters, and none of them carried radios. Real officers don't show up without communication gear. One of them, the tallest, walked straight toward our yard. "Ma'am, HOA compliance inspection," he barked, flashing a badge so fake it looked like it came from a toy store. Sarah asked calmly, "Since when does the HOA hire police officers?" That's when the second guy smirked and said, "We're not hired, lady. We are the law here." Sarah told them to leave immediately, reminding them that trespassing on private property without cause is a crime. Instead, the third one stepped closer, his hand resting on the fake baton at his side. When Sarah pulled out her phone to record them, he slapped it out of her hand, and then, in a moment that made my blood boil, he slapped Sarah across the face. That's when I came outside. I had been in the garage, organizing my old gear, when I heard Sarah yell. I saw her clutching her cheek, while these clowns puffed their chests like they owned the place. Everything in me switched from neighborly patience to combat mode. I walked right up to them and said, "You boys picked the wrong house. You've got about 5 seconds to explain who sent you." The tallest one smirked and said, "The HOA president told us you've been ignoring notices. We're here to make sure you comply." He tried to stare me down, but I've dealt with warlords and mercenaries. A suburban poser in a fake vest doesn't even register on my radar. I told Sarah to go inside and lock the door. She didn't argue. She knew I was about to end this charade. I stepped closer, low voice, and said, "Touch my wife again, and you won't be walking out of here." They laughed, but their bravado cracked when I demanded their identification. They refused. Real police are required by law to identify themselves when acting in an official capacity. That's when I knew they weren't just trespassing. They were impersonating officers, a felony under federal law. And right there, in broad daylight, in front of half the block, I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. The moment I realized these guys were impersonating officers, the gloves came off. I didn't raise my fists yet, but I shifted my stance. Feet planted, shoulders squared, eyes locked. It was the same posture I used during deployments when things were about to turn violent, and the 3 clowns must have sensed it because their laughter faltered. The tall one, clearly the self-appointed leader, jabbed a finger at me. "You think you can ignore HOA rules? You've been warned about your truck, your fence, and your so-called military dogs. We're here to enforce compliance." I felt a dark chuckle rise up in my chest. "First of all," I said, my voice calm but razor sharp, "I park legally, my fence is within city code, and those dogs are service animals protected under the ADA. Second," I stepped closer, forcing him back a step, "you're trespassing and impersonating officers. That's 10 years in prison if you're lucky." The shorter one tried to save face. "You can't threaten us. We'll cuff you right here." He fumbled at the Velcro strap of his fake duty belt, pulling out a pair of toy-grade cuffs that wouldn't hold a teenager. That was it. The last ounce of patience in me evaporated. I moved, fast. My left hand grabbed his wrist, twisting it until the cuffs clattered to the ground, and my right elbow connected with his jaw in a clean, controlled strike. He dropped like a sack of bricks, groaning on the lawn. The second guy lunged, swinging his baton. I sidestepped, caught his arm mid-swing, and used his momentum to flip him over my shoulder. He landed hard on the concrete with a sound that silenced the neighbors gathering on the sidewalks. The leader froze, eyes wide. For a moment, he tried to keep the act alive. "You're assaulting officers," he shouted. I stepped into his space so close he could smell the sweat on me. "No, I'm stopping 3 criminals from assaulting my wife. Big difference." That's when Sarah appeared at the door, holding her phone back up, this time recording everything. "Already called the sheriff," she shouted. "They're on the way." The leader cursed under his breath and tried to bolt for the SUV. I wasn't letting him go that easy. I grabbed the back of his vest, yanked him off balance, and pinned him against the hood of his vehicle. He squirmed, but the truth was, he had no training, just bravado and a stitched-on badge. By the time the real deputies arrived, 2 of the fakes were rolling on the ground, clutching injuries, and the third was face down on the SUV with my knee in his back. The deputies wasted no time. Guns drawn, they shouted, "Hands where we can see them." I raised mine immediately, stepping back while Sarah pointed out the 3 imposters. "Those are the guys. They hit me. They claimed to be cops." The deputies disarmed them, ripped the fake vests off, and within minutes the truth spilled out. The ringleader cracked first. Under pressure, he admitted the HOA president had paid them cash to teach us a lesson. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just harassment. It was a full-blown conspiracy. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. Down at the sheriff's station, the three so-called officers looked pathetic. Their fake uniforms were bagged as evidence, their wrists cuffed for real this time, and their story was unraveling by the second. Under questioning, they admitted what I already suspected. The HOA president, Karen Ellis, had hired them. She told them to rough me up, scare Sarah, and make us fall in line. When the deputies turned to me and asked if I wanted to press charges, I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely, I said. Impersonating officers is a felony, and assaulting my wife is going to cost them dearly. Karen, though, wasn't ready to roll over. By the end of that very day, she had the gall to file a lawsuit against me. She claimed I had used excessive force and damaged the reputation of the HOA. She even tried to argue that her hired thugs were security contractors, and I had overreacted. My attorney nearly laughed when he read the paperwork. "This is a gift," he told me. "We'll countersue for harassment, assault, and conspiracy, and since you've got video evidence of everything, this isn't going to end the way she thinks it will." The court date arrived quickly. On one side sat Karen, smug in her blazer, whispering frantically to her lawyer. On the other side, Sarah squeezed my hand, calm and steady, with our attorney ready to dismantle their entire case. The judge didn't waste time. He asked the HOA's lawyer to present first. Their argument was thin, built on lies, and fell apart the moment Sarah's video played on the courtroom screen. There we were, Sarah being slapped, me warning them to back off, the fake badges, and the assault in broad daylight. Every word, every strike, every desperate attempt to act official was captured in crystal clarity. The judge leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "These men are criminals, and you, Mrs. Ellis, hired them. Not only is your lawsuit dismissed, but I'm sanctioning you for abuse of the legal system." My attorney stood, his voice calm but firm. "Your Honor, we're filing a counterclaim today. Conspiracy to commit assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and HOA harassment. My clients deserve restitution." Karen's face went pale. Her fake confidence crumbled as the weight of it sank in. By the time the gavel came down, the judge had not only thrown her case out, but ordered her personally liable for damages. The HOA board members present in the gallery didn't even look at her when they left. Her empire of intimidation was collapsing right before her eyes. And as for the three impostors, they were held without bail, facing multiple felony counts. The sheriff himself shook my hand after court. "Good thing you kept your cool," he told me. "Most people would have frozen. You probably saved your wife from something much worse." I nodded, holding Sarah close. Karen thought she could control us with fear, with lies, with hired muscle. Instead, she lost everything.